let's bring in the host of this conference, the chief executive of Renaissance Capital. First, sir, if you could explain your investment strategy and what Renaissance Capital is doing, because I know it's quite unique from what a lot of investment firms are doing right now.
Yeah, I think our strategy is based off a fairly obvious theme and a second theme which is perhaps a little less obvious to people. The first theme is the huge growth and renaissance of emerging markets and convergence of emerging markets with the West, the acceleration of the transfer and movement of capital from West to East, as it were. But the other theme, which is probably even more interesting, is the integration of the emerging markets, the increased capital flows between the emerging markets, both strategic flows and increasingly financial flows, and the corollary of that being the partial disintermediation of Western capital.
I want to ask you, tomorrow you have former U.S. President Bill Clinton speaking. Does that say something to us about U.S.-Russian relations? I mean, is this like evidence of the so-called restart?
Yeah, I think there is a restart or partial restart. You know, Russia has an enormous opportunity to play a bigger role in the world, commercially, financially, and politically. And I think the US is being somewhat more flexible, shall we say, in its attitude towards countries like Russia. So there's a lot of mutual opportunity there.
The reason I ask you is because Bill Clinton can't just go anywhere and speak without basically being sanctioned to do that by the State Department because of his wife's position. So you feel that kind of support for Russia is now there?
I think that support is there, but I think the incentives for the US to provide that sort of support are only going to get stronger, not just in Russia, but in the emerging markets generally. The US will have to be more accommodating to the style and needs of other countries. It's a more multipolar world.
I got to ask you about BP. I know Tony Hayward's on his way here. Big story of the week. I know you advise BP. What are you telling them about how to speak with the Russians and what to do with their assets here?
You know, we can't comment on what we might or might not be saying to BP, but I think you know, BP has a fabulous portfolio here. More than any other international oil company, they have paid their dues and built up credibility and experience. So, you know, I think the investment that they've made in Russia and in the CIS is going to hold them in very good stead at this time where they have some challenges in the US.
It doesn't sound like we should expect any asset sales today, tomorrow.
We'll have to wait and see.
Gotcha. One quick question. We have about 30 seconds. You've got a bunch of guests here, big investors, businesses from Mongolia. This is a very small, well, very large country, the size of Western Europe, with a very small population and about as many roads as in Luxembourg. Why Mongolia?
Well, in terms of resource endowment, you know, one of the richer countries in the world, very undeveloped, will probably experience extraordinarily high GDP growth, maybe one of the fastest growing economies in the world over the next 5 years. And look where it's located. You've got China on one side, you've got Russia on the other. Yeah. So incredible strategic
big
interest.
Opportunity, yeah. All right, thank you very much. That was Stephen Jennings, CEO of Renaissance Capital.